call upon the main speaker of the event, Mr. Honorable Viphya Harawa, Secretary General of Pan-African Parliament. Thank you, sir. Please come and bless us. A big round of applause, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, friends and colleagues. Mr. Edwin Banda, proprietor of Banda and Associates, Madam Banda, colleagues and friends from Banda and Associates, partners of the Pan-African Network of Immigration Practitioners, ladies and gentlemen. And I would also like to recognize three friends who accompanied me here. There's Mr. Clement Mavungu. Mr. Clement Mavungu is a seasoned lawyer. He is with the African Union. He works for the Pan-African Parliament as the lead counsel. Mr. Emmanuel Black is an American living in Seattle, in Washington. He's visiting South Africa. He's originally from Malawi. And there's a gentleman who just left, Dr. Mike Wright, the white man who was sitting here. He's a Capetonian. And the three gentlemen, when they heard I'm coming here, they decided to come with me because they are my friends, but because they also have, as individuals, a big passion for immigration matters. It's really an honor to be asked to speak at the launch of the Pan-African Association of Immigration Practitioners. It's very humbling that you could consider me worthy to address you at this auspicious occasion. I have prepared a brief presentation. It's mostly figures and principles, but I've tried to tone it down. And I request, ladies and gentlemen, that as we listen to the presentation and potentially as we discuss it, I would really like for you to focus on two things that may not come out of the prepared presentation. And the two things are, first, to consider whether we are still, as Africans, colonized or whether indeed we are independent. And I say this because we'll be discussing structures in trade which are not promulgated, which are not originated by any of you here or any of your countries. We are going to be discussing borders of African nations which none of you here took part in delineating or determining. We are going to be discussing principles on immigration which did not exist until the colonialist was here and until the colonialist left us. So I would like throughout the presentation that you have at the back of your mind the question whether we are indeed independent, whether indeed we are free, or if we are peddling ideas that were given to us by other people who thought they knew better than we do. And we have not taken an occasion to reassess these principles, to reassess these structures, and define structures which we believe would work for us. Structures in terms of trade, structures in terms of immigration, structures in terms of borders, structures in terms of the future of the continent. The second thing I suggest that we bear at the back of our minds as we listen to the presentation relates to our own cultures and sense of value. We are going to talk about single border posts. We are going to talk about citizenship. We are going to talk about a sense of belonging to the continent as a whole. And yet, these might be too big ideas to start discussing if within our own countries we do not have any legislation for citizenship of other Africans who have spent a certain number of years or have a certain commitment to the careers that impact the economy of the countries. Within our own countries, we are not integrated. We are still bent on tribal values. So if you're, since we're in South Africa, I'll use a South African example. If you're in South Africa, it matters whether you're a Zulu or a Xhosa or a Venda or something else. And if we have not overcome that, whether we are ready to start talking of integrating Malawians and Zimbabweans with South Africans, with Namibians, with Cameroonians, Nigerians, and so on and so forth. And I'm talking in this regard in terms of what are our values as a continent? What do we really believe in? Are we saying that we can divide ourselves? We're entitled to division within our countries, but we're entitled to integration and consolidation at the continental level? Will that work? So just bear in mind what are our values and how much of colonialism is still here with us. I'll go to the prepared text, and I want to start by congratulating PAN AIP and each one of its members for this milestone achievement. I work for the Pan-African Parliament, an organ of the African Union. It is a legislative body of the African Union. I'm delighted to see your enthusiasm and passion to working together to contribute to maintain and develop professionalism amongst immigration practitioners and to secure high-quality immigration service across the African continent. Indeed, this initiative will go a long way, as has been said by the Director of Ceremonies, by the Secretary General, by the President. It will go a long way to contribute to the smooth realization of African integration. If we can all move freely, if we can all trade freely within our various jurisdictions, that leads to integration of the continent. And that is the main purpose for the organization that I work for. Socio-economic integration, including free trade, circulation of goods and services in the light of the free movement of the peoples of Africa. My assumption being that not everyone has the same level of appreciation of the newly launched African Continental Free Trade Area, I will start by briefly outlining the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, which was launched on 1 January 2021. It is a byproduct of what's known as Agenda 2063. Agenda 2063 is just a dream that the African Union has put on paper for where they would like to see Africa by the year 2063. And one of the things, one of the milestones, one of the flagships in this dream was to establish an African continental free trade arrangement which will promote trade within Africa. And this was launched effective 1st January 2021. So I have entitled this presentation as the interdependence between intra-African migration and free trade under the African Continental Free Trade Area. The launch of the African Continental Free Trade Area on January 1, 2021 was an exciting game changer. Currently, Africa accounts for just 2% of global trade, and only 17% of the African exports are intra-continental, happen within Africa. Compared with 59% for Asia, Africa does 59% of its trade with Asia, 68% Europe. The potential for transformation across Africa is therefore significant. The AFCFTA will create the largest free trade area in the world, measured by the number of countries participating. It will connect 1.3 billion people across 55 countries, with a combined gross domestic product estimated at $3.4 trillion. The AFCFTA comes at a time when much of the world is turning from cooperation and free trade. The agreement aims to reduce all trade costs and enable Africa to integrate further into global supply chains. It will eliminate 90% of tariffs. It will focus on outstanding non-tariff barriers and create a single market with free movement of goods and services. Cutting red tape and simplifying customs procedure will bring significant income gains. Beyond trade, the pact also addresses the movement of persons, of labor. It creates competition, investment, and intellectual property arenas. If fully implemented, this exciting new agreement will bring to Africa and to the world a number of benefits. And I have listed 6 of them just for purposes of our discussion here this afternoon. Firstly, the AFCFTA will significantly reduce poverty. According to a recent report by the World Bank, the AFCFTA will boost regional income by 7%, or in monetary terms, by $450 billion. It will speed up wage growth for women. It will lift 30 million people out of extreme poverty by the year 2035. Wages for both skilled and unskilled workers will also be boosted. I don't know whether that is an advantage or a disadvantage, because SARS will also want to collect more from the boosted wages and salaries. The AFCFTA highlights the significant and increasing commitment of the African Union to reducing poverty through trade, a link that is increasingly being recognized. Ngozi Okojo-Iweala, former candidate for the CEO of the World Trade Organization, recently stated that trade is a force for good, and if properly harnessed, can help lift millions out of poverty and bring shared prosperity. The second advantage that is envisaged out of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area is that it will bring about positive economic outcomes. These will be many, these will be varied. Diversifying exports, accelerating growth, competitively integrating into the global economy, increasing foreign direct investment, increasing employment opportunities and incomes, and broadening economic inclusion are just a few of the positive economic outcomes that the AFCFTA is expected to bring. It is estimated that this agreement will increase Africa's exports by $560 billion, mostly in the areas of manufacturing. Intracontinental exports would also increase by 81%, while the increase to non-African countries would be 19%. According to Mo Ibrahim Foundation, if successfully implemented, the AfCFTA could generate a combined consumer and business spending of $6.7 trillion by 2030. Furthermore, markets and economies across the region will be reshaped, leading to the creation of new industries and the expansion of key sectors. Significantly, it would make African countries more competitive globally. The third benefit expected out of the AfCFTA is that women stand to gain. The AfCFTA clearly focuses on improving the lives of women. There is a risk that some of the economic gains made by women through trade could be reversed by the COVID-19 crisis. According to the Economic Commission for Africa, women account for around 70% of informal cross traders in Africa. And again, as I said in my introduction, don't just accept the term informal cross-border traders, because that is not your creation. That term was not created for you. In fact, informal traders account for the backbone of the African economy at the moment in terms of trade. So, through such work, women can be vulnerable to harassment, violence, confiscation of goods, and even imprisonment. Tariff reductions under the AfCFTA will enable informal women traders to operate through formal channels, bringing better protection. Furthermore, a growing manufacturing sector will provide new job opportunities, especially for women. As AfCFTA Secretary General Wankele Mene stated, if the AfCFTA will be the opportunity to close the gender income gap and the opportunity for small and medium enterprises to access new markets. This is significant since small and medium-sized enterprises account for 90% of the jobs in Africa. The fourth expected benefit of the AfCFTA is the focus on trade integrity. The AfCFTA offers an opportunity to promote good governance both globally and across Africa through the concept of trade integrity, defined as international trade transactions that are legitimate, transparent, and properly priced, as a way to ensure the legitimacy and the legitimacy of the global trading system. the prevalence of illegally procured or produced goods, for example, illegal mining or fishing or goods resulting from child or forced labor, misinvoiced trade transactions, and opacity in most free trade zones strips need now more than ever before to assist with the pandemic response. The fifth expected benefit of the AFCFTA is the potential in reversing the negative impacts of the COVID-19. But you must also understand that this and the previous benefit come after the fact. When the AFCFTA was being couched, when it was being formed, we didn't have the pandemic. When the AFCFTA was being structured, we did not have the pandemic. So these are benefits, these two benefits come after we have already decided to form the AFCFTA. And you need to accept that with skepticism as whether this is indeed a benefit arising out of formation of the AFCFTA. The last benefit that I need to highlight is that the benefits of cooperation will set an example for the world. You know, for the first time, there is an opportunity through this agreement for Africans to unite as a single trading bloc when facing the world, other continents, other economic institutions, and so on. At the moment, only about 27 to 30% trade is conducted within the African countries. Most African countries do not trade with other African countries. It's about 27%. At the time of forming the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, African countries already had commitments with other countries, notably Brazil, Europe, the United States, the African Union itself, which formed the AFCFTA, has agreements with Europe. I think the Cotonou Agreement is a trade agreement to provide a minimum of exports to Europe. So at the time that we are forming the AFCFTA, we are not even trading amongst ourselves. And you must also consider whether you need an agreement before I can sell something to you or you can sell something to me. Whether we need an agreement before I can come to South Africa to buy something, or if South Africans can go to Tunisia to buy something. So again, this is an agreement, this is paperwork, this is on paper, but trade happens amongst individuals and organizations, and they are the ones really to form the rules. Now, what is the interplay between intra-African migration and free trade? At the outset, it is worth highlighting that migration is one of the most important issues on the international agenda. It also features prominently in the media and has become the subject of ongoing political debates. Much of the ongoing public debate, however, casts African migration in negative terms. Indeed, images of Africans on boats attempting to get to Europe not only reinforce this, but have also led to a growing and misleading perception that international migration from the continent is primarily to the global north. What the media does not say is what happens to people, and they are the majority. People are not crossing the Mediterranean. People want to move, who want to go to South Africa, or who want to go to the Gambia. People want to go to Egypt. People want to go to South Africa. What's really happening on the continent in relation to this? We don't get that coverage. We get coverage of people who want to move out of the continent. And within our continent, we have problems that really need to be addressed by a forum such as, a body such as this one, the Immigration Practitioners Forum. At the moment, there are very few countries in Africa, if any, that have legal provisions for citizenship for other African countries. So to put it in common sense, in simple terms, if you want to come to Malawi, if you want to become a citizen in Malawi, you are really at the mercy of Malawi. You have no entitlements as an African country. If you want, you can be in Malawi, stay there for 20 years, even get married, and still be a foreigner. Because there is no law that automatically says if you are here for this number of years, you become a citizen. The same thing in South Africa. The same thing in, as far as I know, all countries in the continent. It is easier to become a citizen, for me to become a citizen in the United States of America. Because there are rules, it's predictable, I know what I need to do. I don't know what to do here in South Africa. I don't know what to do if I want to become a citizen in Sierra Leone. It's not there. So if I come here, if I live in this country for 50 years, I'll come in as a foreigner, I'll work here as a foreigner, I'll die here as a foreigner. There is no provision for citizenship. And these are practical issues which need to be tackled, and the answer may not lie in the law, the answer may not lie in the economic benefits that foreigners bring to a country. In my country, I'll always be from this tribe or from this region. So whatever I achieve, whatever I do will be defined by, oh, which tribe are you? And in a way, I feel that we are taking this same reasoning to the national level. I was saying yesterday with Mr. Black that Toyotas are made in Japan. And Toyotas are not considered a cultural commodity. But when you bring a Toyota Hilux into South Africa, everyone will accept it and integrate it into the happenings of South Africa as a useful tool. You might even have a plant for Toyotas here in South Africa, because Toyotas contribute to the well-being of South Africa and South Africans. Not so with an individual. So you can take a Mr. Piri from Zambia, bring him into South Africa, and he's a good contributor. But he's not a Toyota. He's an individual. So you start asking, where are you from? Which border that the colonialist made do you cross before getting to your village? You don't ask a Toyota that question. You just say, oh, Toyota is a good car. I can use it. No, I can get to the valve with it. So it's good, I need it, and you incorporate it and you integrate it into the economy of South Africa. But somehow when it comes to human beings, we don't look at the value, we don't look at the expediency, we don't look at the profitability of having that individual in the particular country. And I'm mentioning South Africa as an example. This applies to all countries. Then you start saying, you are from Namibia. You don't do that when you're collecting the keys for your Toyota. You just say, I like this car. But it's very difficult to like a foreigner who is an individual. And perhaps this is because of colonialism. That's how you've been made to function. You can have Swahili spoken across from the DRC to all of East Africa, to even parts of Somalia. But when you cross into DRC speaking Swahili, they will ask you, where are you from? You say, I'm from Zambia. You're a foreigner. If you dress like I am dressed today, you're a Nigerian. Then immediately you get a label. You're a Nigerian. You know, you not say, I'm looking nice, I'm looking handsome. No, you say, oh, so we didn't know you're a Nigerian. I'm not a Nigerian. I'm wearing clothes made in Africa. When I wear a suit, a nice suit from Britain, which I also possess, nobody says to me, are you from the UK? But when I wear this, they'll say, he's now trying to be a West African. No. Why is it right that I can wear a suit and there's nothing wrong with the suit? But it is not quite apt if I dress like this if I come from Southern Africa. It's because that is what the authors of the borders have spoken into your mind, and that is what you take to your parliamentarians when you're trying to decide who should stay in your country and for how long they should stay in your country. The tribalism that you have in your countries, that tells you this tribe is bad, that tribe is bad. Don't marry from that tribe. Don't marry from that tribe, but you can marry a white man from 10,000 kilometers away, and it's acceptable. That is a mentality and a misplacement of values for us as Africans. The thing that tells us, don't trade with your neighbor. Your neighbor will become richer than you, will be more important. You know? He can't accommodate wealth. He was born poor, we know him, we know his grandfather, we know his great-grandfather. They are poor people. And we're bringing that now into this atmosphere that we call modern, where we wear suits and we sit in parliaments and we make laws. At the back of our minds, we are thinking we must have, right now in the Pan-African Parliament, in the African Union, we are pushing for a single border system. So if you go to Messina to cross into Zimbabwe, you cross at the same border, you cross the South African border, and then you cross the Zimbabwean border before you are truly in Zimbabwe. So we are saying that we should have only one border between South Africa and Zimbabwe. But we are not saying, as was said earlier, no one is saying, should we in the first place, should we really have these borders? And maybe that is an argument that we need to pursue. Because we might just be perpetrating systems that colonialism bestowed on us. We are talking now in the African Union and the Pan-African Parliament
about a single visa. Some countries have already implemented it. Mali, Rwanda, they have already implemented it. Namibia, and we are saying, maybe before we talk about the visa, we should talk about citizenship. Who says that I want a visa? I don't want visa to go to Malawi. I want to become a Malawian. If I spend 10 years of my life, of my prime life in Malawi, I don't want to just get a visa. I want to be given a choice whether I want to be a Malawian or whether I want to be a permanent visitor, a visitor for life. And Malawi is benefiting out of me and I am not benefiting out of Malawi. Turning it into a situation where I'm literally a beggar. And why are we beggars in each other's countries? It's because someone told us that your country ends here. This is a different country. The lion that was spoken about, the director of ceremonies, only applies to animals. But who said that? Who said that the border between South Africa and Zimbabwe is at Messina? The people on the other side speak Ndebele, the people on this side speak Zulu, same language. The people on the Zambian side speak Nyanja, the people on the Malawian side speak Chichewa, same language. The people on the other side of the Namanga border speak Swahili in Tanzania. The people on the other side of the Namanga border in Kenya speak Swahili, same language, but they are different people. We are told that they are different people. There are Maasais on both sides of Mount Kilimanjaro, but they are different people. Why are they different people? And so just to challenge you that maybe as we look at solutions for migration and immigration and how this impacts on trade, the answer may not necessarily be in the law. The answer might be in our mindset. The answer might be to question ourselves whether we're just not working on things that we inherited without understanding or without accepting. Because, our bosses told us so. And when we became bosses, we also told the people before us that, this is what our job is, to promote and continue with this line of thought. So I mentioned that there's talk of one-stop border posts. It's also important to create simplified trade regimes, develop efficient regional payment systems. There's no reason why we can't have the equivalent of SACU, for example, the Southern African Customs Union, an equivalent of that in immigration. You know how the Southern African Customs Union operates. The government of Lesotho is basically run by VAT from South Africa. So when people in Lesotho buy in South Africa, when they're going back, they leave the receipts at the border, the government collects those receipts, goes back to South Africa and collects the VAT. And most of the budget for running the government of Lesotho is based on that. We can have something like that even for immigration. Create regional, maybe as a starting point, create regional unions for immigration to start eliminating the borders, not creating one border post, eliminating the borders. And a European visa, if you get it in Portugal, like now there is a golden visa being offered to South Africans. If you get that visa and you go to Portugal, you have not a Portugal visa, you have a visa for the European. If If you are in America, if you're an American citizen, if you become a citizen today, there's no probationary period. So tomorrow, you have the same rights as every other American. And they will not ask you what tribe you are. They will not ask you what language you speak. They will not ask you where you live. It's an American visa. And perhaps we are being very short-sighted if we start thinking of an African visa before we can agree on African citizenship. So, Mr. President, I think I didn't know Dr. Mawere was here. I saw him. Yeah, he had gone out. But really, the point that I'm making is that there are technical arguments in favor and against both the African trade, intra-trade, and also in terms of movement within our African countries. If we can't have free movement, we can't trade, because most of our trade amongst each other is what has been classified as informal trade, informal cross-border trade. There is even an acronym for it, ICBT. So without free movement, you cannot have viable informal trade amongst the countries. And informal trade accounts for the backbone of trade in Africa at the moment. Intra-trade and trade with other countries. You know, South Africa, for example, trades more with its partners in BRICS. In Brazil, India, China, and Russia. It trades more with its partners within BRICS than with other African countries. African Union as a whole trades more with Europe than amongst itself. The greatest intra-trade going on within Africa now is in what they have told us is informal trade. And for us to do informal trade, we must get into buses and cross the continent, traverse the continent. So without free movement, we can't achieve that. But perhaps free movement does not start with visa. Free movement should start with you accepting me. If I come to your country is Sierra Leone. If I come to Sierra Leone and I like Sierra Leone, I should know how I can eventually become a citizen. Not visa, citizen. So they are citizens of Europe, they are citizens of America. Why don't we have citizens of Africa? So from the foregoing, it is not in doubt that the launch of the AfCFTA serves a historical moment in African history. It brings about hope and delight to Africa's renaissance and integration. It speaks of an African milestone in the making and signals continued innovation and trade. First within and among African countries, it is also Africa's long and victorious quest, particularly during the COVID-19 pandemic. While the implementation of the AfCFTA is expected to take years, its success must be hinged on a complementary rather than a corollary outlook to free migration within the continent. Free migration
offers complementing opportunities to trade, such as the one-stop border course with trade facilitation, desk offices at each post, the alleviation of poverty through remittances, and enhanced trading services through implementation of the protocol on free movement of the people. And you'll see that although we have the Africa Free Trade Agreement, the majority of African countries, no, I think 33, only 4 countries have ratified the protocol on free movement of the people. So we are talking about intra-trade, but we are not talking about free movement. We are endorsing trade, but we are not endorsing free movement, and yet it is the free movement which accounts for intra-trade. So again, that's a fallacy that you might wish to focus on, maybe to lobby the African Union, that it's lip service to talk of African free, continental free trade agreement without promoting the protocol on free movement of people. Thank you very much, Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen.